What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some big news that came out from the government that's going to be quite bullish, in my opinion, for the short term, and also some big things coming out for Tesla as we have deliveries numbers coming out for tomorrow. But before I break anything down about what's going on with Tesla, before I talk about the overall market, let me just mention a couple of things real quick. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you put in $1,000, you're guaranteed 10 free stocks, and putting $5,000 into the account guarantees you 16 free stocks, and one of them will be guaranteed as a Tesla or Google share, and any could be worth up to $2,000. So once again, if you want 5 free stocks, just put in $100. This offer ends in 2 weeks. Check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market right now. So Tesla was up 1.56% for the day on Friday, holding up quite decently and trying to outperform the market. But the question is, how will Tesla and the market move from here? And the answer is we have some good news that came out for the markets. We have this news that came out that Biden has signed a 45-day funding bill to keep the government open. This is just kind of like kicking the can down the road for the time being. And this right here would technically still be bullish news because it's alleviating some of the fear that was basically instigated by this event. With this potentially playing out and the government delaying the shutdown or at least just avoiding it for the time being, this would be bullish for the markets. I think the market should bounce thanks to this. However, the story for Tesla is a bit different. I'm going to discuss that in just a few minutes. Now, when it comes to more data coming out, we have the PMI report coming out about 15 minutes after the market opens, then like 30 minutes after open. And then we also happen to have Jerome Powell giving a speech again at about 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Not sure why he's giving a speech this time around, but he's going to be giving another one. It could cause the market to move a little bit. Then after that, we have more Fed speakers coming out throughout the day. We have Harker and Williams from the Fed all giving their speeches. But the most important one is going to be Jerome Powell giving a speech. We will see what happens after his speech. Now, I also want to add that there's not a whole lot else going on. We have the JOLTS job openings for Tuesday. That's going to be quite telling. But besides that, Powell's speech is going to be one of the biggest things to be watching for, not to mention the PMI data in the morning. Now, besides that, I just want to mention that the market should start off quite strongly thanks to Joe Biden and the overall Congress all coming to this consensus on this bill. With them doing this, the market should start off strong, but then you don't know what's going to happen after Powell speaks, so be very careful during then. Now, for Tesla, it's a completely different story because Tesla has some big data coming out. We have their Q3 deliveries report coming out tomorrow morning. This is going to be very, very important for Tesla. Now, Wall Street is expecting Tesla to give us something around this 460,000 range. That's what the main perspective is. That's very close to all-time highs. And looking at the data, based on registrations, even though they're not really sufficient pieces of data, what I will tell you is that the numbers are not looking that great for Tesla. There's a high probability Tesla may end up missing just by looking at the current numbers. It's not the end of the world because there are macroeconomic factors and additional things that are hurting the company as a whole. That is having an effect on demand and other factors. I'm still optimistic Tesla will do very well for the long term, but for the short term, this could lead to some possible downside. I'm going to be super straightforward with everyone. And here's why. So when we look at some data right here, you can see the Chinese insurance data right here from 2022 relative to 2023. These green bars show us 2022. You can see 2023 started off much stronger for the first few weeks. If you look at the last recent weeks that came out, look at the last 4 or 5 weeks. 5 weeks ago, during the 33rd week of the year, you could see that Tesla did a lot better in 2023 than 2024, also like during this week. But look at the last 4 or 5 weeks. You could see that they weren't doing as well in 2023, less registrations, same thing for the next week after that, the penultimate week, same thing. Even like this week, same thing. These declines overall are not looking as strong. So we're actually starting to show some signs of declines, and the overall numbers are not looking the strongest in China. We also started to see some declines for companies like NIO and Li Auto. Their numbers were not looking as great. So we're starting to see some declines in demand, which are affecting Tesla as well, in my opinion. Now, on top of this, Troy Tesla, they basically came out with these numbers. I want to give them credit where it's due. And this is looking very, very interesting. So there's some talks about how the Model 3 Highland supply issues are imminent. in Europe at least, because once again they're doing very very well in terms of demand for that in particular, but their overall sales may not be the strongest. This is what the estimates are looking like. Let me just zoom into this so you could see it. In Europe, right, we had relatively strong amounts of sales, especially during like the last months of every single one of the quarters. And then this month, it's estimated to be a little bit lower according to this. So, want to be very careful with this. I would say that July was a little bit stronger than the first months we saw from the previous quarters. I would say that August was stronger than February, but not really much stronger than the second month of Q2. And then during the third month, the last month, I mean, typically you want to see a big increase. As of right now, the numbers are not looking as strong. September was not that strong for a lot of Chinese sales either, so there's a slight decline, and there are some signals showing that. So if that ends up being the case, this would not be the best for their numbers. We would have wanted to see at least 50,000 for September and maybe closer to like 33 to 40,000 instead. We'll see about that, but that could lead to another decline. So on top of this, I think we have more data right here from what the estimates are expected to be. We're seeing like 435,000, 440,000. Wall Street's saying 460,000, right? Others are saying the consensus is now like 454,000. Either way, it's between like 454 to 460,000. That's what we're basically estimating for the most part, based off these Wall Street analysts and etc. There's more data from Troy right here. You guys can see it. How on earth things are expected to be. And Troy is estimating 441,000. So, it could be the case. We'll just have to wait and see on that. I'm going to zoom into like right here. If you look at the historical data about how Tesla tends to do around its deliveries time, we have it right here. They tend to do relatively well the majority of the time, but this time around, we're not too sure about what the actual numbers are going to be looking like. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, if it's a big miss, it's going to be big for Tesla. If not, it is what it is. Last but not least, guys, I want to just talk about this news right here. Tesla is a company that does very, very well. There are a lot of these big estimates between 440 and 510,000. Looking at the weaker looking Chinese numbers, the weaker looking European numbers, possibly, it may not be another 460,000 delivery month or a quarter for Tesla. We're gonna have to be very patient. We'll have to wait and see on this. Q4 could be a little bit better because the supply constraints may not be as severe by planned factory shutdowns and things like that. So we'll just have to wait and see. As far as the market goes, I just wanted to call out the fact that the market is still quite fearful. We were at extreme levels, and now we're kind of like transitioning away from it a little bit. And my prediction is this for the markets. I think the market's going to try to bounce, but Tesla is going to be more affected by its deliveries. And honestly, guys, I'm not too excited about these numbers. I mean, I was just looking at the registrations, not looking the best. And we have this possible head and shoulders on Tesla. So it depends on what time the numbers come out. Whether if they're a little late, we could see Tesla pop one last time and possibly decline. It just depends on the numbers. We want to see Tesla do at least 460,000 for us to be bullish. If they do 450,000 or less, that could be bearish for Tesla because that's going to be a decline compared to the previous quarter, and that's going to be below a lot of Wall Street expectations. Looking at the numbers, Chinese numbers are not looking too good. European numbers looking a little weak. I'm a little concerned, guys. We might see Tesla sink, so just be very careful. This head and shoulders could play out, but I just want to be open-minded for anything just to be safe. If Tesla breaks below this 240 supports, there is a risk of it basically continuing to fall towards 420. If deliveries are strong, hypothetically, Tesla could push towards 260 plus. Right where this imbalance is 260, could even break out even higher, but I'm not really leaning more in that direction. I'm leaning more towards the downside, just looking at the numbers so far. But just to be safe, we're going to be waiting to see how it ends up going. So remember, deliveries are going to be the biggest factor for Tesla. Yes, we have Jerome Powell's speech and other factors, but deliveries are going to be the biggest thing for it, at least for tomorrow and for, I would say, the next few days. For SPY, however, I just wanted to mention that for the shorter time frames, we had these possible head and shoulders developing on SPY, Apple, Nvda, and all these different stocks. But there's a good chance that we may try to invalidate them now that we had this bullish news that came out. And on the 4-hour time frame, we could see that there's quite clearly a potential cup and handle like formation on SPY that could be forming. So I'm going to lean a little bit more bullish. I think SPY is going to try to get back above 430, possibly pop in the morning approaching Jerome Powell's speech. And then after Powell, you never know what's going to happen. So I think the market's going to gap up and start pushing for 430 plus, if not 432. Then after that, it all depends on Jerome Powell during his speech. That's what I'm predicting for tomorrow. I think that other stocks like that are likely going to see some similar moves. SoFi may try to pump as well towards this 8.3 area, 8.4 as well, and then maybe reject off that, forming another cup and handle. The IWM may bounce as well, try to get back above this 178 resistance, forming a cup and handle, but then it could stop depending on Jerome Powell. We'll have to just wait and see what Powell causes. But approaching Powell, I'm anticipating some upside. I think Apple's going to try to bounce as well. Now, Apple had this head and shoulders like pattern that was developing, but the news about the government shutdown being avoided should be enough to help Apple pump. And this could develop into an inverse head and shoulders instead. And we could see Apple try to make its way up to about 174, then slow down. And I think Jerome Powell will determine how we go from there. For the QQQ, it looks more bullish. We have a potential cup and handle forming. I could see the QQQ making its way back up to about 362, and then we could slow down after that, depending on Powell. Nvidia, in my opinion, looks bullish now, and I'm saying this because we still have a strong uptrend technically, but we're going to be fighting this 200 EMA. I predict Nvidia is going to revisit this 441 area, 441 to 442, and we're going to be fighting this resistance. If it manages to break this, there could be a lot more upside coming. But for now, I think the government shutdown news, government shutdown being avoided, could help Nvidia push for 442. Microsoft looks like it could attempt to hit 318, then reject off that and there, and then react to Jerome Powell. And then after that, we also have the VIX, which is looking, in my opinion, a little bit weaker. The 4 hours is about to get a bearish cross on the PPO. If it rejects off this 5 EMA at this 17.5 resistance, we could see a head and shoulders forming on the VIX, and we could see this thing start to sink a little bit as the market attempts to bounce. The dollar came down. It's barely holding support around this 106 area. If it rejects off this and comes back below 105.8, that could be bullish for the markets. I believe that Coinbase has potential to bounce as well. If you look at it, we also have a potential cup and handle forming on it. So I'm going to be watching to see if it can retest the 74 area, then bounce off that and start pushing for 78.5. For Google, I believe that Google has potential as well as a potential inverse head and shoulder pattern. I believe it's going to try to bounce and make its way back up to 133.1 and potentially about 135 after that. I'm leaning a bit more bullish on Google approaching Jerome Powell's speech. Then after that, it all depends on Powell. Amazon looks a little bit more bullish. We have a nice inverse head and shoulder structure now, and I think it's going to make its way up to about this 130 imbalance. So I'm leaning a bit more bullish on Amazon, at least approaching Jerome Powell's speech. And then for Meta, you could argue this is looking like a cup and handle. Technically, it is. If we hold this 298 support right here, as long as we don't get this bearish cross in the PPO, if we hold 298, I think Meta could be making its way back up to 305. If it fails to, hold, then yes, this could turn bearish because we're about to get a bearish crossover, looking a little weaker. So we need to see Meta bounce off 298. If it does so, I'd be bullish. If it fails, then it could turn bearish. But that's pretty much it for my analysis for today, guys. We're going to be watching to see what happens with Tesla with deliveries coming out tomorrow morning. So get ready. We'll see what happens. Without deliveries, if they come a little later, then we could see Tesla attempts to bounce initially, but then the big move is going to come after deliveries. I just want to remind you all that the numbers are not looking the strongest based off the registrations data across the world. So just be very careful, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I want the best for Tesla. I just want to note I'm very bullish for the long term, but for the short term, we're just going to have to wait and see for now. All right. Thank you for listening. Get ready for tomorrow. It's going to be a massive day, and peace out.